Good evening.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Hi there.
Laura,
There.
Molly,
All right.
see, George,
It's Frank.
Nick.
All right. This is everybody, right? 1, 2, 1, 2.
Meredith.
Yeah, we missed one.
Oh, yes. Meredith, right? Yeah. I got a message. Nope. All right. Well, I think I'll call the FinCom to order at 6:31. I think Meredith will be joining us because I will recall a message from her. So, hope everybody's having a good summer. Let's see. Let's do a couple of things in order. I guess we can start. So here's kind of a quick rundown of the agenda tonight. We're going to review minutes from our last meeting. We're going to do a final set of end of year line-to-line transfers. We're going to talk about the tie and bond contract extension. I'm hoping we can take a little time to look at the long range planning tool and talk about next steps on that. And then I'm sure there's some other updates that folks might want to make sure we have a few minutes to discuss at the end. Am I missing anything? Okay, let's look at minutes from
June 16.
June 16th. Let's see. I had one thing I noticed, which was I think Molly was absent, but I don't think she's labeled as absent on that.
Was it the
Yeah,
16th or?
she's
Oh.
listed as absent.
She is. I must have looked at the wrong
Well, no,
one.
she is on the July one.
Okay.
No, June 16th, she's
Oh, yeah,
listed.
yeah, Laura too. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Got it.
Right. And then Molly, you were not at the last one either, right?
Right.
All right.
Because Molly did correct me on
So
that one. I want to make sure I got the right one.
yeah. Okay.
Sentence.
So
I did make changes on it since I sent it out.
okay.
In section 2 under the elementary school capital, on number C, letter C, Susie corrected me on the dollar amount for the feasibility design analysis. It was really 150,000.
Okay.
So I corrected that, and I went back and looked at the recording because just to be sure. I also looked at the recording and realized that 10 million wasn't mentioned. AJ, I think you mentioned 1 million.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually something different than that. So I've changed the second sentence, the third sentence to say construction grants are also available for the conversion to heat pumps. And I just
Okay.
ended it there.
Okay. Got it.
Just that way we don't have to worry about being accurate.
Okay. And don't let me forget, I got an interesting update on this just right before the meeting. I got an email from Michael DiChiara that I want to update you guys on. Okay. Anybody have any other, did you make any other changes?
No,
George,
that's it for me.
Okay. Anybody else have
Nope.
suggestions or? All right, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from June 16th as amended.
Second.
Okay.
Overnight aside.
Let's see, we got a new here. So Cashew eye.
Mosier, I.
I think we skipped Frank.
You want McGinn, aye.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry,
Right.
MC, yes. McGinn, aye.
Moss eye.
Sort of abstain.
Okay.
Abstain, right.
All right. Okay. Great. All right. So the minutes are approved, and then we have July 14th, right,
Yes.
George? Okay. Yeah. All right. And this is the one where you've already made the correction about
Yeah,
Molly's
Molly's.
attendance. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. I didn't see anything else for me. Does anybody have any suggestions or edits? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 14th as amended.
Second.
Arvanites, aye.
Cashew, eye.
McGinn, aye.
Mosier, I.
Moss eye.
So do I.
All right. So we are caught up on minutes. Great. Okay.
And I'll submit them.
Great. And then Laura, are you taking over as of this meeting or is it
Yes, I'm
next meeting?
currently
Yeah,
taking-
okay, great. Awesome.
But what? And AJ, if I may, one thing.
Yeah, please.
It might be helpful to get in the habit of doing the AI on the minutes and sending the notes to Laura. I think it would be helpful.
Yeah. I can't recall. Is that a default option here? Let's see.
Yeah, it's next to the shield with the green shield.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens automatically. I think it's
All
more
right,
remembering
so-
to send it to her when it's done.
Okay, so I think there are a couple of things. One is there's transcription, which is automatically set, but I think you're talking about the AI companion is on. Yes. Okay. So what you're suggesting, George, is that at the end of the meeting that that gets shared with Laura, so she can kind of have that as okay. That makes
And I
sense.
mean, if Laura decides she doesn't want it, right, Laura, you can just
Yeah.
let her
Yeah.
know, don't bother. But I think it's going to be helpful on
Yeah.
occasion. It will be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think there are
AJ.
some people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do the
Yep.
same thing for the buildings committee. There's like 5
Mhm.
forms. You should, it takes about 15 minutes after the end of the meeting for it to do everything.
Okay.
And then you could look at what form is best. You know, they have like 5 different forms and they give you
Mhm.
the default one and see which one's best. Because some aren't as good.
Okay, got it. It looks like one of them, if I'm thinking of if I'm seeing what you're describing, is a meeting summary that includes some kind of transcript. But so maybe that's the one. Okay, sounds good. So I'll take a look at that after we wrap up, and I'll send that to you, Laura, or I'll send you a link. I don't know if it's a document that gets downloaded or if it's just a link. Okay, great. Next up, why don't we do end of year transfers? So I'm going to pull that document up. And we've got quite a few, but I think we can kind of just look at them together and then kind of vote on them as a group of transfers. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so this is end of year transfers part 2. Okay, how's that for
Good.
font size? That
Jeez
work? Okay.
Louise, look at them all.
Yeah,
There's
so
a lot.
we've got quite a few. I mean, most of them are fairly small. I was trying to think of the ones that I was a little surprised by. One was legal expense. I did that wasn't on my sort of radar. Haley, do you have any background or context that might be helpful for knowing what it was about the legal line that sort of
I think there were just
fell
some
short this?
things that we didn't anticipate needing
additional
Mhm.
legal guidance on, and we had also utilized KP Law for some of the personnel board, personnel like handbook related items.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
and for some, I mean, I think these were all, yeah, I think that one was certainly a high ticket item. The independent audit also came in at a
Yeah.
higher figure than we had initially projected. The electricity was due to the lag between when the library went live and when the solar panels kicked in.
Yeah.
The town administrator salary line, that was because you didn't have a draft of my contract, which would have told you that to budget in that increase.
Yeah. Right.
There was some additional fire department calls and then subsequent trainings. And then I think everything else is fairly low. A little extra in the veterans benefits than we had first planned. But the biggest factor was the snow and ice, both the wages and the expenses.
Got it.
Okay, could I follow up?
Yeah, please.
On the independent audit, I was
Yeah.
very surprised by that
Yeah,
because I thought we build that up each year and we roll over the balance so that there's
Yeah.
plenty. And I'm concerned if we ran out last year, we're going to run out this year too.
yeah. What's that?
Yeah, so I don't have the prior year comparisons in front of me. I could definitely dig into that a little bit more, and see how
Yeah, I think
much
you need
of
to,
a
Haley,
differential that
because
is.
yeah, I think you need to look into that one because we were building it up annually and rolling it over, and I thought we had
That
enough
was
numbers.
that was one that's like required every 2 years or 3 years?
Every 2 years.
Every
No.
2 years.
I think it's longer than 2 years.
I think it was
Oh, is
3 years, but it might go to 2 years because we're bonding for the library.
Uh,
And it may have been an off year. It may have been unexpected. Well, maybe not unexpected, but came a year sooner because of the library. So, Haley, you
That
might.
could
Okay.
that could potentially explain it, right, George? If it's an amount that's usually accruing over 3 years, but because of the bonding issue, we had to do it a year early. Maybe that might explain
I
it.
think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
My
got it.
memory is not so good, but that
Got
might be it. That would make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask about was, and I was thinking the same thing. I was curious about the legal, but the other two that you didn't mention, Haley, are towards the bottom. The rubbish and the sanitary landfill were also fairly substantial.
yeah.
Yeah, I can check in with Meryl about that.
Yeah. The
I think
rubbish,
it
there
was
must be,
just-
right, because that's a contract. So I wonder if there's like something in the contract that allows them to sort of bill us for sort of excess costs, maybe fuel related. I don't know what it would be, but
Yeah, maybe it's a fuel class. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And sanitary landfill is probably related to volume. Maybe our volume was just higher.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm
I think
speculating.
this also means that we can't solve these at this point. And so, one, we need a heads up when it's happening. And then two, it needs to be figured out. And we could have a
Mhm.
threshold at which point it has to be figured out. But I mean, it's not like we didn't have a legal line in our budget, and
Right.
this is spending over that. And so when we come to this point, we need some explanations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't have all the information to be able to figure it out from here.
Yeah. So there is, let's see, there is an explanation.
Yeah, it doesn't
Mhm.
cover all of those things. Gail doesn't have
Yeah.
each of those, but she has
Right.
the ones for the biggest items.
Yeah.
You know, or why we were over for buildings and
Oh,
heating,
Yeah.
and electrical inspection.
Yeah.
We owed some people longevity,
Yeah.
but I can definitely get some answers for you, for those specific questions.
That would be helpful.
The other related question I have, Haley, is
Mhm.
Gail along with this document, had sent, an expense report dated July 16th. And I'm going to put that up right now, was that like I would see these overages reflected on that, expense report. But it doesn't seem to be the case.
I'm
So,
not sure that it would because she needs the select board and FinCom to sign off on these before she can make the transfers.
right,
I don't
but
know
I
if that
guess,
You
would.
should see
yeah,
the deficits.
right. So here,
Sure.
like, let's look at this, the legal. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's showing a balance 15,000, not a deficit. So, but maybe that's because this expense report is not meant to track with this list of
Well, it sh-
it
it
should, right?
does. It
Yeah,
does. It's just I think it's a timing issue. I
yeah, that
I
could be.
I thought the same thing, AJ, and I went to the
Yeah,
website and
yeah.
I found a file called FY26 July 31st. And I thought,
Okay.
oh, here's the real one. I opened it. It
Yeah.
was actually the first one for FY27. It's mislabeled.
I see. Okay.
So
So
the
maybe I
final one,
should.
I'm just going to say
Yes.
the final one may not be made it to us.
Okay. Yeah. This is partly my mistake because I didn't actually do the crosswalk of these two documents until this afternoon and then noticed that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll shoot Gail a message asking her if there's a final expense report for FY26 that we haven't seen yet, and if it's available, just confirm that it should with the costs that we're seeing on on this list of end of year transfers. I can ask her about that.
And I personally am okay with voting on these tonight, but I think that's a
Yeah,
really helpful thing to have.
yeah.
Also, if I can just turn this conversation sideways just for a minute, when you look at the report that you just had on the screen, the unspent balance at the bottom is $635,000. After this
Yeah.
transfer, it goes to 495. And it
Mhm.
seems to me like that's too high.
Yeah,
It's unusual for us to get $495,000 in a year at year end from
yeah,
unspent lines.
yeah. It's clearly not the final, right? It would seem. Okay,
Well, and I don't think it's the final before these transfers. It's
right,
probably two ago. Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And in the independent audit, we
Hmm.
had $10,000 saved. So, if something was going to be different than what we had, we need to hear about it coming, I think. And we also need to understand if that is a change in like next year's
Right.
savings up for
Yeah.
the
What's the
audit.
impact?
And we
Yeah.
had 20,000 in legal allocated. And that was following those years that were really high. So we need to know if there's a reason to be allocating more than 20,000 in legal. And that's kind of all of those issues. We need to see it. We need to see why so we know what to do for the next funding cycle.
Yeah. So in that expense report that Gail sent with this list,
Mhm.
the independent audit line is showing 0 expended and a balance of $15,935. So that would suggest that the cost of the audit must be more like $20,000 if I'm
Yes.
assuming that got spent and then it got overspent by an additional $4,000. So I will ask Gail about that as well. Okay, let me pull back up this document. So if it wasn't clear, let's see. Okay. We are Gail is suggesting a few different things here. One is we've got a total of 92,000 and change in excess spending, and she's proposing that we zero out the FinCom reserve fund
Mhm.
So that 47,000 and change gets applied to the snow and ice wages. And then there's an additional, roughly $54,000 in snow and ice expenses that get paid through either health insurance or highway wages. So I think that was a question at one point earlier this year about whether we would like carry a balance over into FY27, and it sounds like her recommendation
no.
is that we're going to pay. Yeah, we're going to just use transfers to fully pay our FY26 expense.
Right.
Okay. Anybody see
Right.
anything else? Yeah, please go ahead.
For the snow and ice, wasn't there something about the state allocating more money for communities for that?
They have, but it's not available yet. And then there's also, so every state, there's a formula. So there's a pot of money, and like 80% of that money goes to the municipalities. And then you can apply for additional funding from that remaining 20%. So we have the application and we do intend to apply, but we don't have it in hand to be able to process out the end of year transfers.
So if we
So
get an
we got-
award, it'll go into free cash?
I'd have to check with Gail exactly where it's going to go, but I believe that we could apply it to some of the past bills, but I would need to double check with her on that
Yeah,
language.
either way though, right? It's going to end up
Yeah.
in free cash.
Yeah. Right. And we don't have any sense of how the formula, of the 80%, what that is going to
I
yield for
I
Shutesbury.
believe it's based off of Chapter 90, although I could Google it.
That's all right. Yeah, just thought it'd be new. All right. Well, that'll be good. All right. Anything else stick out?
I'm
From
a
this
little
list here?
confused at why there's so many highway wages that were unspent that went against this list.
Hmm.
Where-
Yeah, let's
We
see.
had an employee that was out for many months, several months last year. He was on paternity, and so we didn't have any other employees step in. So there was that excess there, the excess in the clerk salary. That's, obviously we went most of that last year without a town clerk. And I think that was, and police wages. So having,
Yeah, we know that.
But
in the highway wages, was there a paternity leave benefit?
he was able to use his saved PTO. And then once that was exhausted, it was unpaid leave.
Okay.
So the last expense report, or at least the one dated July 16th, is showing an ending balance for the highway wages line of 21,000 and change. So it was spent at about 82% of the budgeted amount for that line.
Okay.
So let's see. And how much is she using here? 5, 8, 16. So it looks like about 16,000 or so of that is being used here. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else need to be followed up on here? Okay. I meant to look this up, but Haley, I have one thing I was hoping we could double check, which is that this is the real balance in the FinCom reserve.
It is.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, I
That's double
checked.
checked. Okay. Yeah.
We're off by $1 on our spreadsheet.
Okay, great. Good. Okay. So I think what I'll do is make a motion to approve these line-to-line transfers reflected in this document as recommended by our accountant.
I have
second
one
that.
question before we do that.
Sure.
We had some It's probably in the minutes. We met some expenses that hadn't been anticipated, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so where are those?
Were these like the
Oh, they're in
longevity?
section D, of 4. And we had some unfunded budget lines for like the custodian and the highway super for longevity budget.
Yeah, and they're not there.
Right.
And for longevity bonuses. So I see the highway superintendent, but that's not his, his number is
None
on
of these are
here.
longevity.
It's 300.
Yeah,
Does
it's
it
not
straight wages?
longevity.
Yeah,
There
none of
was
these
a
are the longevity
mistake.
line.
No, there was a mistake in the accounting of the highway superintendent salary. And so that is what's there before
Okay.
you. These are not the longevity.
Yeah, so Susie's point is valid. Why aren't they on here? Because
The
we,
custodian and the highway one need to get their longevity bonuses
Well,
on this list,
is
right?
Well,
is it possible that that was already taken care of in that first wave of line-to-line
Um,
transfers?
I'll
'Cause
try to
we
find my
talked about it in our last
spreadsheet.
meeting.
Yeah, because we voted on July, whatever that was, July
15.
14,
14.
we voted to transfer $7,635 from FinCom reserve.
Those were for the FY 27. These are the ones for FY 26, which we're
Oh,
looking at right here. There were
oh,
two
I see what you're saying.
pieces that weren't covered, and our notes say the FY 26 unfunded budget lines will be covered
Oh,
by year-end
Yep.
transfers, but I don't see
I,
them
see-
in here.
I see what you're saying. That's a good catch, Susie. Okay. I see what you're saying. Right. So there was two custodian. Sorry, I know you just said this, but so it's the
Custodian
custodian,
for 500 and
500,
highway for
highway
30.
super, or 300.
I mean 300, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So right, those were FY 26 unfunded budget lines. Okay.
And I don't think it came up until after
Yeah.
so they should be added to the bottom of this.
Okay. Should we go ahead and put them in now, assuming that that's that Gail just wasn't informed about that?
I
we
mean, I
don't-
don't
we
know
don't
if
know
it
where-
changes
We don't know.
for
We don't know where to take them from, right? Yeah.
right. I mean, so I'll see Gail tomorrow. I can ask her.
Yeah.
We could definitely send out another document
Yeah.
to you. And then
We can do it on
I'll
the
have
17th.
answers. Yeah, and then I'll have the questions about the other two accounts for you.
All right.
I mean, the
So maybe-
answers at that time.
Yeah. Maybe what we can do is we can approve these transfers now as written and prepared by Gail. And then we can take a separate like conditional vote to approve the final two transfers, assuming confirmation from Gail about what the sources of those funds are.
Well, that's, I would, what Susie just read was us approving doing that, and it's in the minutes of the meeting of the 14th of July. So Haley, you might want to ask Gail if she needs to make them, would those minutes be adequate support and
Probably,
essentially
yeah.
be our approval?
Yeah.
Except
be,
for this is, well, it's not closing
But
this document, but it is a document that also the select board have to vote on. So I feel it should be attached here or written some way that it's conditional. We approve this plus another 800.
Yeah.
These two identified costs.
Right. From a source to be determined by our accountant.
It can probably wait 2 weeks, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gail didn't find another one or two, and we had another one of these anyways. I'm not sure we need to address it. And for all we know, Gail figured something out, and that's why it's not on here.
Well,
is she the person that initially noticed that, Haley, or did it came from personnel board or
the longevity?
Yeah, for the custodian and the superintendent. Like, is she aware? Is it possible she wasn't aware of that?
It's possible. You know, I think there was a lot of confusion over longevity and who gets it and when. So it's very likely she has caught other longevity misses. Um,
At the end
Okay.
of the year, she sees every line. So if
Yeah.
those
Yes.
lines were overspent, she would know it.
They weren't identified in the FY26 budget. That's the problem. We
Yeah.
didn't know about them until Haley did the table. And she did that in the capacity of the personnel board, making these clear. So I think one of the parts of this is we didn't say at the end of our vote, Haley, you need to go back and talk to Gail because this is new information for her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about is if she just isn't, she's not aware of it. All right, so let's do this. I think I made a motion to approve these transfers as written in this document. Let's handle this one first. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion about this? All right. George,
Arvanitis, aye.
Cashew, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Moss eye.
Floyd, aye.
Okay. And then I think what I will do, just in case it saves us, some time and helps, I don't know when the select board needs to review this list. I'm going to suggest, and I'll make a motion to provide conditional approval of 2 additional FY26 line-to-line transfers, $500 for the custodian's longevity bonus and $300 for the highway superintendent's longevity bonus to come from a source recommended by the accountant.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion about that?
Arvanitis, aye.
Cashew, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Moss eye.
Floyd, aye.
Okay. And hey, out that you need something like that's not sufficient for us for those last two, just let us know. We can do it at the next meeting. All
That
right.
should be good. And the select board meets tomorrow, so I can have
Okay.
them sign, scan it, and get it to all of you.
Great. Good.
And talk to Gail.
Okay. So that's line to line transfers. All right. Haley, can you walk us through the tie and bond
Yeah.
contract issue? Yeah. And just especially, well, I think Frank, you might have some of this background, but just in case, maybe you could sort of give us a little bit of background on what they've been doing and what the
So
test is.
the long story is when we were doing all the library work, we discovered that there was PFAS at the old fire station and it trickled down and moved through the ground. So we've essentially reached the end of our current contract of services with Tie and Bond. And so initially they had, I had said, yes, we'd like to continue. Could you give us a proposal? And what they had submitted was about $100,000 a year for the next 3 years. So I said, that's too big a price tag. We're going to have to go out to procure that. Could you just, so that we don't lose any, state dead marks and any reporting deadlines, can you just give us like 6 months so that we can continue doing the service, and that'll give us ample time to put together a bid and go through that whole process. So what you see in this proposal is there's 14 double filtered POET systems, and then it's also budgeted, I think, for about 30 or so homes that have the single vessel POET.
Yeah, 30.
And I could not go into the scientific specifics of that, but what I can tell you is that this proposal clocks in at just about $63,000 and would get us through the end of December. It would cover the reports that have to be submitted every 6 months, and that there would be a status report that the Tie and Bond would submit and some additional site assessments. There are some things that this does not cover, which doesn't deviate too significantly from what we're currently doing, but like if somebody needs bottled water because they are water tested, and they don't have the POET system, we would be
Mhm.
responsible for that. We already pay for laboratory analytic services through PACE and public notification letters. Brennan is very diligent about doing that and getting that back, and POET installations and the like. So it's still a substantial cost.
Yeah.
It was not something that was on the town's radar when we were in budget season. It came in very, very much at the end of last fiscal year, and it's a significant expense. It's not as much as they quoted us for the full year of service. And we are required to do the reporting and the testing and the monitoring. So it's something that we have to think about and ultimately plan for procurement where we can hopefully get something a little bit more competitive than what they've given us.
Sorry, Haley, are you
Molly?
saying that it was going to cost us $100,000 for a year and now it's costing us $63,000 for half a year?
That doesn't make sense.
Yes,
So
that's
that
what they
is-
quoted us.
Even more.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
And that's not the only cost.
No, it's not the only cost. I mean, I can definitely, I wanted to just bring it to your attention, and I
Yeah.
can go back and say if there are terms that we want to include or exclude to continue the conversation. But before I did anything, I just wanted to bring it to you and the select board first.
So just so I'm clear, Haley,
Mhm.
this scope here is essentially the kind of minimal level of compliance work that we are obligated to perform, right? It's testing of existing houses that have already been identified as having excessive
Yeah.
PFAS contamination levels. It's not installation of any additional new POETs. Does it include testing the additional sort of surrounding area outside of the currently identified
Yes.
zone of
So
homes? Yeah, so that's
the way that they would do it is if something new was identified, then if you go back to page 1, they would
Mhm.
do a 500-foot radius around that point and they would test
I see. Any
within
homes
that
that
to
are within
determine.
that. I see,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it wouldn't just be what's happening now. They would,
Yeah.
continue to test and see because sometimes it shifts and one home may register as having it, for one testing cycle and then not for the next, because that's just the way that the groundwater moves.
Okay. And I know there's a few hands up, but if I just could ask one more question. I'm curious about whether this doesn't break down those costs by any kind of like specific units. So like, is there a cost per test or per home or something like that? I wonder if they would be, I mean, obviously they arrived at this figure of $62,700 somehow, but we don't see the underlying math. It might be, I think it's reasonable for us to ask for that. And I would be curious if the cost, I don't know what the terminology is, but if the cost per test or per home, or it's probably per test, is more or less consistent with what we've been paying them over the last couple of years, or if there's been any significant change in that cost. Does those sound like reasonable questions for us to ask them?
Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah. Okay. Susie.
So first of all, I don't know how this compares to the services offered in the last contract. I don't know if they had these things called, we're including 5 additional private well locations per sampling round. I don't know if that was what they were doing before. I don't know if any thing happens within the 500-foot radius, if that will be an additional cost, or is that caveat there meant to cover some of it? The previous contract for most of it was quarterly testing. Um, I believe, well, I know it's gone to only semi-annual testing. And like Molly, I don't understand why half a year is more than half of what they were proposing in the longer range 3-year contract. But I don't know if that 3-year contract was really taking into consideration that it's now semi-annually, not quarterly. So I don't know if there has been a process of comparing what we were getting before and for that cost and what we're getting in this proposal. And like you said, if we had a per cost per household, we would know a little bit more about it. But there is a difference between a household that has double poets and a household that has single. Um, so I think if maybe Haley's gotten some of these answers, how does this compare to the last one? Why is it more than half of their proposal for the next 3 years? And then we'll have to talk about the funding. I would understand this to be, we have some funding in FY27. And we have talked about how we need to look at the funding stream, make it an operating cost, blah, blah, blah. But I would think that there's some already matched up funding in our FY27 budget for this.
So I can answer some of those questions. So the 2022 proposal is more localized. There are fewer poet systems that were part of that testing. So it's a greater expanse. It's definitely more of the testing. It also covers more of the state reporting, which has changed a lot from when we first signed this contract with them several years ago. It's more comprehensive now. There's more steps involved in what's required to go to the state. And as far as the laboratory fees have always been billed to the town. Some of the other standout pieces of this for the services not included, is again the bottle. So there's more cost to the town in the sense of the bottled water and the public notification letters and the poet install costs. But essentially the scope has increased. So I guess at its most core level, scope's increased, so the price has increased. In terms of testing and the number.
George?
Oh, yeah, 2 points. First of all, the contract is not a fixed price contract. It states not to exceed. And then it goes on to say that it's based on, I don't have it in front of me anymore, hours plus, an hourly plus expense basis. So they're just giving their high estimate of what it could be and sticking to that number. But it would be interesting, I agree with you, AJ, to see the components of it. How many hours are they estimating and what kind of rate do they think they bill us at? And then the other question, the bigger question is, Susie was saying we might have some of this budget in FY27. We need to look into that. We need to really understand what our annual costs are going to be going forward. And obviously, this is an amendment that's only good for 6 months. It's really that contract that gets signed for the new year that's going to give us better information for that. But we've been using loans to get us through. We have a fund. What's the status of the fund? What's the balance of the fund? How long is that going to last? And how are we going to work this expense? Because it seems it's an ongoing expense and there is no outside funding for it at this point. So, that's something I hope we can follow up on.
I mean, it sounds like we have our answer, at least, that we've been to a question we've been asking about, which is what is our sort of ongoing expense. And maybe this is the answer. It's $100,000 a year, assuming this problem stays relatively contained. And maybe that's not maybe that's not the right assumption to make. I don't know. But
well, I would just one thing about that, but also all the fees for PFAS, because there's the lab fee, and then there's some other fees that are referenced in here that they don't cover. And so we need, what do we need to fund in that line?
Right. Good. Frank?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the testing. I thought we were at a finite stage, that we've had so many houses and we test there. And they don't go farther out because they haven't been tested. They test negative. Is that true?
So the
I mean, like
process of
the
testing, oh, excuse me, the process of testing is that each semi annually they test all of them, and if anybody shows up that wasn't being detected before, then they have to look
Oh.
farther. And also because PFAS is not a stable thing, there can be no detects on some of those 30 houses, and then they detect it, and it becomes one that has to be followed up on the 500-foot range.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess so Haley, I think you've got a couple things of questions to follow up on. Let's just assume a scenario where we decide this this extension needs to get funded. What is our process? So what are we proposing to do here? So part of it is, one step would be to see if there's existing balance in our PFAS loan balance, right? That could cover some or all of this. So that would be one question. Who would have the answer to that? Is that something that Ryan could track for us, or is it in our general expense report? Does anybody know this?
Ryan would be my first go-to.
Yeah.
He might also have insights about what we have to do
Okay.
for like a year-long contract.
Yeah. All right. So let me make a note. All right. So
It also helps to ask Gail
yeah.
where these are being tracked in the expense report.
Okay. So let's take one scenario. Let's assume that there's insufficient funds in our loan balance to cover this cost. Are we going to a special town meeting and to procure funds for this? Or, I mean, is there, I assume that's what we'd have to do, right?
Mhm.
In
That would
scenario?
be, yeah, we'd have to do
Okay.
special town meeting, which
Okay.
in our bylaw would be some Saturday in October. And I think
Okay.
we would also need to decide, once the contract extension is up in December, how do we maintain that service until the start of the new fiscal year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at the expense report, and under hot, under the hot, is it under the highway? No, it's in between. It's on page, let me see what page
What's the
I'm
line
on.
number?
I'm getting there. I'm
Yeah.
on page 12.
Oh,
And it's so I'm on page 12. I'm near the bottom of the page, and it's called PFAS contamination. And it started the year with 198,000,
Oh,
took out some money, and it says we
Right.
have 95,897.
Okay.
And that's what we were talking about when we were looking at FY27, that that money is listed on the expense report. So yes, we can make a plan B, but
Right.
it's really understanding how it's showing up in our expense report, and talking to Ryan can help too. But
Yeah.
unless we're wrong, and this has a line number, it's a long number.
Yeah.
I don't need it. Never mind.
If you happen to go to the expense report, you can see it on page 12 near the very bottom.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing with that is just making sure that, like I said, I think the full first year that they quoted was like 106,000. So even if we have that much in that account now, it might not get us through for a 1-year contract. And so I just want to try to make sure that we have a plan for that.
Mhm.
And
Because we have-
Haley, just I mean, one of your earlier points was that this is a cost that's large enough to require us to put this out to bid.
Yes.
Did I
Yeah,
understand that correctly? Yeah. And do we
absolutely
know,
it is.
are there, you know, numerous firms that do this, engineering firms that do this kind of testing? Do we know any?
There's several different firms. I had talked to some
Okay.
other TAs, and there's a
Uh,
couple towns that use. I would have to look at my email to for the vendor
okay.
name, but they had also recommended a different provider. I
Hmm.
mean, the bid process is great in that it could be more competitive. I mean, maybe some of the things that aren't being covered now could be covered. Um, I just like to have that
Yeah.
like worst case scenario plan. But my hope is that through procurement, we would actually get something that's maybe a little bit less than we were first quoted and
Yeah.
has more value.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
GZA is another one. They're
Hmm.
probably the
Oh,
largest
yeah.
in New England.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
Got it.
other thing that is troublesome is that we did not understand that the contract would be, well, they're saying it's only a half a year. Um, but our fiscal year and this contract thing doesn't seem to jive. But we were looking at having enough for an FY 27, and we were only off by maybe 5,000. So, so I guess I don't know what we didn't know. I don't understand why, we wouldn't just go for the 100,000, which we seem pretty prepared for. It's clear that the contract expires,
Hmm.
but why would we go for a half year instead of a whole year, which we believe we are set up to fund?
That was because then that would allow us to have time to go through procurement. I don't know, when I saw those figures and was thinking about it and having talked to other TAs, I mean, I wanted to see what else was out there.
Yeah.
We've worked with Ty and Bond and they've been really good to us, but I think that, to me, we owe it to ourselves to just see what other options there might be if we went through that process. And we can even start on the state approved vendor list and try to get something similar. But my goal was how do we maintain the testing that we need to do in the short term and have time to go through procurement because it can be a lengthy process.
Mhm.
So because the contract expires is why it has to come open to a bid. Is
Mhm.
that right? Period. Just
Yeah.
period. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. All right. Makes sense. All right. So we've got a few in terms of follow-ups here. We've got some questions for Ty and Bond. We've got some questions for Ryan and Gail, potentially Gail, about um, source of funds. We have a decision to make once we have those answers about whether to um, request appropriate additional funds at a special town meeting for this purpose. Because obviously this contract only covers us for one round of testing. Um, and then Haley, I guess, right, there's no reason why, and maybe you already have, there's no reason why we can't start the procurement process for the back half of the year and maybe even build that as like a longer term contract that carries into FY 28, right? Is
No,
that,
we can
yeah.
no, we can
Okay.
start that soon.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions?
I think the other thing about the 95,000 that's sitting in that line is, like Haley said, there are other expenses that are probably paid out of that, some of the lab testing and blah, blah, blah. So it could
Yeah.
be insufficient for the year, and we'll wrestle with that when we get a clearer picture. But I still am struck by the idea this is a half year. They've already completed the spring testing, and it's a high number. 62 is high. And it really is high when you think about they were doing 4 testings in the past. And it's true
Yeah.
they're doing more homes, but it also stabilized a little bit in the past. It didn't continue to, the original was, like bam, 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 it was expanding. So I
Mm.
feel like there's not a clear apples to apples here. And I don't know. We also have the problem that Tigan Bond lost the person that was doing it, Jeffrey Arps. And so whoever's in on it now, whether they're looking at the past contract and understanding what the pieces were and making a good projection. And like you said, AJ, if we got a cost per home, we could compare it kind of more simply
Yeah.
to the last one.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's kind of not clear enough to me. And I feel like this number is high. And like George said, this is not to exceed, but I'm not sure that there's a clear understanding of how this contract is different than the last.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, George.
Yeah, and we've been grappling with how to fund this for years, and it would really great if we could wrap this all up together. I think we're at that point. But my question is, we're not the only municipality dealing with this. This is a problem nationwide. And has there been any talk, I don't know if anybody's heard, about potential funding from some other outside source?
Right. There is a
Well-
state effort right now to talk about it, but I don't know what kind of yield it will be in terms of local funding.
Is there any kind of a movement, a grassroots movement through the state from the municipalities or the MMA?
No, but I think there certainly could be. It could be a good way to start maybe with the small town administrators, since some of our fellow towns are doing the same thing, and then work our way up the ladder.
So there is a piece of legislation that has PFAS in it. I don't know if you know which one that is, but it's in the mix. But I don't know how long it would take for it to show up.
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's the
Joe
thing.
Comerford has talked a lot about it. And so I think she is the sponsor or co-sponsor of this particular legislation.
Susie, did this come up in the meeting at the MWRA?
No, no, they don't deal with the problem end of it.
Well, I know it's, Aaron has tied the two together at times.
Yeah.
Talking about how great would it be, how easily we towns could solve the PFAS problem if they could put a straw in the Quabbin.
Yeah, right. Well, the other long shot is that Worcester Polytech has a new huge grant to look at something they have that would take PFAS out of the soil. So if we can stick with science, we might get there. That'd be great. But the fact that that's even funded is because PFAS is a gigantic problem.
Just one thing about that, when Sam was here, who works for Time Bond, to take a sample from my well, he mentioned years ago one of the options is pave over the field where the problem is so that water doesn't leach into the soil and move the PFAS from where it is. Just throwing that out there.
Right. But we also have places in town that have tested positive without being connected to the fire station.
This is true.
I was just doing some reading while we were talking. So there is this emerging contaminants in small or disadvantaged communities grant, but I think this may apply to municipalities that provide
Central water.
a public water supply,
Yeah.
not like private wells. Does anybody know anything about this? EC, SDC?
That's allegedly why we got turned down from the final Clean Water Trust.
Oh,
Yep.
because our problem is a private well
Yeah.
sort of problem. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. All right. I don't think there's any sort of action that we need to take at this point right now, right? We've got a bunch of follow-up research to do, and then we will revisit this at our next meeting. Anything else on PFAS? And the Tiger bond contract? Okay. All right. All right. Hi, Meredith.
Hi, I wanted to apologize. I thought I had put the
No.
meeting in my calendar, but it's
Oh,
set up for tomorrow and it wouldn't have done me much
uh,
good then. But I
yes.
remembered before the end of the meeting, so here I am.
Yes. All right. Good to see you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. We got to get used to Monday now. We've been talking Tuesday for a long time, but anyway. Um, all right. So just to let you know what we've done so far, we approved minutes. We approved a whole bunch of end of year transfers, which we think are the sort of final round of transfers related to our FY26 budget. And we just discussed the big sort of complicated issue of our um, PFAS
Yeah,
testing and mitigation work. So if you're interested in that, we can follow up after the meeting. I think with
sure.
you and more. All right. Next up, let's see. Um, George, can we talk about the long range planning
Sure.
tool?
Yep.
Um, would you, let's see, as we're talking about it, does it make sense for me to share it or do you want to share it on your end?
I'd rather
Do you
share it
might
only
want to share?
because if I'm
Yeah,
running through it, I can open and expand things, and
great. Yeah, no, that's good. I'm going to
I'm
just
used to
make
working with
you,
it.
yeah,
I mean, if you wanted to, I wouldn't argue, but
no,
I
no, not at
think it makes
all.
more sense.
I'm going to make you co-host so you can share.
Okay. Okay. Everybody see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this,
As you're before you start, George, can I make a couple suggestions? One would be to just give like the briefest of sort of backgrounds on what this tool is for Frank and Meredith's benefit, and then for the rest of us that have seen an earlier version of this, could you let us know kind of what the key updates are to this
yes.
from the last time we saw it? Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Um, so I distributed this to everyone after our last meeting. And since then, I've made a couple changes to it. But the high level, what this is I don't have my large screen. I've got my PC, so the screen's not great. I'm going to
Can we
yeah, it's
take the
not as
pictures off the thing so we see more? Our
Uh,
people list.
and also what I can do is I got to unfreeze the pane, but I'm having trouble getting to so I can move around. So what this really is, I'm going to skip the first section, and what we really are looking at, and especially if you look at column K, is we're looking at the current approved budget for the current fiscal year. That's what this is in gray. And our total budget for the year is 8,000,003. And then what this spread, and it's broken down, that 8,000,003 is broken down by the large classifications. And I do want to apologize to Meredith and Frank. I was hoping to meet before today to go over the budget. I've injured myself and I'm not mobile. I'm pretty much stuck at home. And so getting to
oh,
town hall would have been a challenge. So I will definitely get to it. Probably not for 2 weeks, but I'll definitely reach out to you. Anyways, because I
We
was
could
hoping you'd
also
be better
Zoom
prepared
if
for
that was
this.
easier.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I was just saying we could also Zoom if that was easier. In person is nice, but you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'd have to set that up. I'd have to think about that. Okay, I appreciate that, Meredith. So anyways, so as I said, this is the total budget for the current fiscal year, and then it's broken out by the major categories in our budget, and you can see them all here, and you can see their dollar amounts. And then it shows for each one the increase from the prior year for that particular line. So, well, let me back up. Up in this section, we have our
yeah.
assumptions for increases. Well, so I'm sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. FY
Hmm.
27 actual budget, and then what we do with this document is we extrapolate from the current year to future years using growth factors, inflation factors, if you will, for various categories, and then all other. So here's your categories. For instance, well, I have to expand this. So I'm going to expand this. Now what you can see is general government was one of the sections. And what you were looking at earlier was just this one line for general government. And then this percentage is the increase year to year. Here's the full detail of it, which I collapse for ease. But what I want to show you is we have a category called salary COLA. Here's our estimate of what the COLAs might be in the future. Given inflation these days, we might even be a little low. And then any line that is designated salary COLA is increasing by that percentage.
Sure.
And then the next one is salary contracted. Anything that's salary contracted is increasing by the percentage that we decided as a committee to use for that. So these percentages here drive the increases at the budget line level. But what we're going to look at today is I'm going to collapse this and I'm going to collapse that. We're just going to look at it at the higher level, just by the different departments. And we can open up any given department, like debt service, which is I'm going to talk about, to see more detail. But the purpose of this schedule is to take the current year, try and calculate going out what our budget increases will be, again, based on these assumptions. Any line that didn't have a category designation is using this 3% per year. And so we can make various versions of this.
Yeah.
So that we can get various budgets depending on our assumptions. Maybe our salary assumption is too high or too low. We can do another one of these, change that, and see what the budget would be in that instance. But right now we got current year, and then we're calculating what future budgets will be, again, based on those percentages. The only thing that's different from those assumptions would be we added a line here that's not in our budget. And the recommendation was made, I believe it was AJ, that we have a contingency amount for unexpected expenses, like maybe the PFAS. And it's based on 1% of the previous year's budget. So each of these numbers is based on, if you look at the formula, on the previous year. And then that's also one of the increases in the budget from year to year. And that's a big increase in the first year because, we don't have anything there, but now we threw in a contingency. It's level going forward, relatively level, but it was not there. And that's one of the reasons why we see a big increase here. And so one thing I was going to mention earlier is for each of these departments, you can see, I did mention it, the percentage increase year to year. And you can see general government, personal property, fire department, emergency. There, I don't know whether, that should be buried, huh? Anyways, you can see they're all pretty much in the 3% range, even a little lower, until you get even education is reasonable until you get to debt service. So I'll get back to debt service in a minute because AJ did ask me to talk about what's different. But just to understand how this works, that really flags to us what one of the big drivers is for what looks like over a $500,000 increase year to year. And we'll talk about that. So that's the expenses. A big part of what we're trying to do is we're not trying to estimate what budgets will look like in the future. We're just trying to get guidance, a sense, an instinct for how things are going to go so that these are made to be played with. They're also not made for making definitive decisions. They're really more to help guide us and to think about some of the long range issues, if that sounded right. If anybody's got other ideas, I'm okay. Anyways, so total operating expenses. And then in the next section, we're going to try and figure out what will our tax levy be? How much will we need to raise from the taxpayers, from the property taxes? And so what we have here is our various revenue sources. At the highest level, again, there's detail under it, but I collapse it just so we can see at the highest level. The first one is state aid. We all know mostly that's education. It's also uncommitted. I forget what it is. It's lottery money, the UGA.
Yeah.
Those are the two biggest items. And then this one is excise taxes and pilot payment in lieu of taxes are in this one. So, and again, Meredith and Frank, I'll cover these things more
Yep.
directly. But here's what we were planning or expecting that would be the revenue in FY27. That's what we build the budget on. We also have this 10,000. It's just a wash. We also have an expense that washes with it. Again, that's the same amount. So it's not really relevant. And then we had how much we used in cash. And you all remember that these are the items that we had warrant articles for. And so what I do is I subtract those revenue items. Actually, I add them together. They amount to 1,799. And I subtract that. Here, let me show you the formula. I subtract those other revenues from what we think the budget is to come
Mhm.
up with how much we need to raise from property taxes.
Right.
And
So that
then,
1,799,603 includes whatever cash reserves we've proposing to apply to the budget, right? That's one of the
Yes.
non-tax levy revenue sources.
and that's the
Okay,
reason why
yeah.
this number is actually higher than this number is because right now we're
Right.
assuming none,
Yeah.
which,
Right.
I think it's not correct. I think one of the things
Yeah.
you might do with this is say, okay, we knew we'd be stepping down from year to year. And actually, I think this is a good plug for the long range plan, because if you look at the long range plan without getting too nitty gritty about it, you can see we have a big jump year to year, but then it seems to level off a little. The increases seem to be a little more reasonable, more to the level that we've been accustomed to prior to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So this tells me maybe we should consider using a little cash to step down or step up from here to here without having
Right.
this big jump between these two. So just kind of a way to think about using the long range plan. So
And George, it looked like, and if you could just confirm this, that for some of our larger revenue sources, like Chapter 70, you base those year-to-year increases by calculating an average increase over this previous 5-year period, right?
yeah,
So,
you can see it right there.
yeah, okay.
And again,
So,
if we hear about legislative changes or anything else, we could always amend these and make changes to them. The same thing is true with the local aid. If the pilot money, there's two pilot issues out there right now, the Quabbin and pilot in general, and
right.
new information may come along in the next who knows how many months, and we can certainly adjust those as well.
Yeah. Okay. And those other sort of smaller cherry sheet revenue sources where you're essentially assuming that they stay flat for this entire 5-year period. Is
Yes.
that more or less consistent with what we've seen in the past as well, like where those have not changed over the last 5 years? Or
They do fluctuate, there's no question, but the fluctuations are just impossible to predict.
Okay, yeah, got it. So
And-
some might
But-
go up, some might go
And they're
down.
not material, right?
But
And they're
this-
not material relative to Chapter 70 and.
But the state-owned land is going to be one of the wild cards, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so let me show you that. Yes, I was going to go to that.
It's right
But
there,
yes,
right?
to just AJ's point, I really only mess around with the ones that are basically the
Right.
lion's share of the total number.
Mhm.
So if we go to local aid, which I had expanded, this is the line we're talking about. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that 50,000 that we know that this 346.5 is short by 50,000 because
Uh-huh.
the governor's budget is giving it 50,000 to all the towns in Quabbin. If that's
Right.
signed into a long-term bill, and if it's 50 or anything else, then of course, yes, Susie, we would.
Right.
have to-
But on your other, on the other section you just showed us, there's one called state-owned land, and it was listed as 31,000.
It's not the same thing. I don't know what this is, but it's not pilot money.
Okay,
Yeah, this is
So
definitely
that's
not pilot.
fine.
Yeah, this has come up before. This is definitely not pilot money.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. It's weird.
Right.
But this is the one that really matters, right? This is money from
Yeah.
Temenos and Amherst for Atkins. Those two don't amount to 40,000, and that may be 50. And the rest of it, the 300, comes from the state for Quabbin land and state parks, including the lake.
Mhm. Got it.
On a
Okay.
side light, somebody asked me how often the pilot is renegotiated with Amherst. Do you know the answer, Mr.
I,
Assessor?
yeah, it's on a regular basis. I think annually we talk about it with them. Yeah, I can't give you the exact, I wish April was here. She might remember. Can't
Okay.
give you the exact details how that's figured. But it's $30,000. So even if it went up 10%, I mean, I think it did go up, but it goes up small amounts.
Okay.
Next time I'm with the assessors, I'll ask that question.
Okay.
So anyway, so far you can see we try to calculate potential budget amounts for future years. We do the same thing with revenue from the state and locally, and then we can calculate what we anticipate needing to raise from taxpayers. And there's a whole lot under here, which I'm not really going to show you right now, but we do let me talk to you about the things we're trying to accomplish. Once we know the budget and we know what the revenue from the taxpayers are going to be, now we can calculate what we think the tax bills will be. And we do have, AJ, here a factor based on historical increases in the value of all the property that gets taxed in town is been increasing by 6.8%. That might be a little high.
Yeah, really.
It might be a little high. And also the annual increases in the average value of property has been 3.7%. I think we should use a factor that's the same on both of these. But that's something we can talk about. It would be a small thing, but this gives us a relative idea. And using these two factors plus the tax levy, we can calculate the tax rate. And based on what we think the average, so the assessed value, you divide the revenue you needed into it, divide by times 1,000, and you get a tax rate of 1734. We apply it to the average single family. We think that in the current year, based on the budget we passed at annual town meeting in May or June, whatever, May, that our average taxpayer will pay $7,248. I can tell you right now that number is high. I think it's going to be $100 less roughly because of the $50,000 from the state, and we are getting more Chapter 7 money. But and then in this year, we're figuring our total assessed value is increasing again by 6.8%. We're figuring 3.7 increase here. So this tax levy divided into the value of the properties means we have to tax every $1,000 at $18, and that will yield us our tax levy. And when you take that $18 and you multiply it times the average single family, the average single taxpayer in our town will be paying $7,830 in fiscal 28 if this estimate was a reasonable estimate.
Right.
And then down at the bottom is a summary of the key factors that are affected. So the first one is the increase in the budget from year to year. That's a number that we presented on our budget to the voters when we voted the FY27 budget. This is what we think that number would be in our annual town meeting for FY28 if this was the budget that actually happened. And you can see the budget increase percentage. And then the other thing is the tax levy increase. And you can see last year, this year for current fiscal year, we told the voters we anticipate a budget tax levy increase, the amount that all the taxpayers are going to have to pick up additionally over the prior year, $427,000. Again, I think that number is high. But for FY28, we're thinking it's going to be this much more than it currently is, and then each year following. And again, you can see these are the levels that have been more typical of what our annual increases were prior to the fiscal crises we've been seeing. And you can see again in FY28, we got a real problem. So far the budget increase, what percentage is, the revenue increase for tax levy, and then the excess levy capacity, which half of you know what it is. And
It was explained to me and Frank.
oh, okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. So Susie, you covered that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll cover it again. Reinforced learning is really important.
Sure.
But basically, we have been very fortunate in that we have not been taxing at the limit that the state allows us to tax to. And that is excess capacity that we have to raise taxes. But we haven't been doing it. We all have been benefiting from it because our taxes are a little lower. But if we were to bring this budget to the town the way it is, and we weren't using cash, and the estimates we have for revenues are what they are, we would be asking the voters to pay to use, well, we would be using $453,000 of that capacity, and that would bring us very close to the limit that the state allows us to tax without an override, without asking the voters for a 2/3 vote or a ballot question. So excess levy capacity for Frank and
Yeah.
Meredith's benefit is something that we really do watch closely because it has a direct impact on the increase on the tax bills. So these are metrics that I isolated from above. The other one is debt exclusion. Because the library kicked in, we had a big increase in our debt exclusion override. And debt exclusion is important in the way it's handled in revenue. Susie may have covered that with you. I will also. But that's something we're keeping track of. And then, of course, the cash we use is always important. So I isolated that. And then the increase in the tax bill, that's basically these two numbers together and the percentage that increase is. So that's what we're doing with this schedule. I can add more if anybody feels like there's something missing, but these are really the metrics that we mostly talk about when we're analyzing the budget at a high level.
So George, on that question, so I view this bottom section that you've got highlighted here as kind of like a dashboard for the whole tool,
Yeah, the
you know,
KPIs.
and so, yeah, so I think there are a couple that I would like, assuming this is eventually something like I could see us sharing this, a snapshot of this dashboard to other folks. I think there are a couple things that should probably be on here. One is just the total operating budget, so not just the increase, but the actual total
Okay,
budget.
you got it. Yep.
Yep. And then we see how much excess levy capacity we're either using or generating in each year, but actually seeing what the balance of the excess levy capacity is. I guess at the conclusion of each of those fiscal years would be useful, I think, as well.
Yep.
So that in that year where we use $453,000 according to this model, what does that actually leave us
With,
at the end of the year? Yeah, with I think that would be a useful.
Well, especially in the light of the way you're saying, we might just present this and not everything else.
Right.
Yeah, those are important things.
Yeah.
In that case, I would probably add the tax levy too.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. The only other one that occurs to me would be the total projected non-tax revenue, but not the non-tax revenue, actually the non-tax revenue excluding cash reserves. So like the state aid, basically. So like the total of state aid and local receipts is I think a useful number. Yeah, or maybe it's just the state aid. That's the
Well, I can do
useful
both.
number. Yeah,
I can do both.
Okay.
I mean, if we decide it's too much information, we can always.
Right. I mean, I think, and the reason I suggest that is because kind of one of the themes that, has kind of come up in the last couple of years is just this idea of how much of the burden of funding the budget is being absorbed by, the tax levy. And so like being able to show people that, state aid is really not increasing, expected to increase in each of these years. So.
Right. What I might do is make another section, because if you look at the heading on that section, it's year changes. So I might put key balances.
Yeah.
And put it ahead of this. So we'll have key balances and it'll be these guys here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then I'll have your changes.
Okay,
Throw these in here so I'm not.
yeah.
I have
Okay,
the,
yeah, that's a
I-
can do. Let me
Sorry,
just.
go ahead.
yeah, so this is a process
Susie.
of learning how to interpret, which is quite challenging. So when I look at, well, he's moving everything around, so I
Oh,
have to
I'm
wait.
sorry, go back. Okay,
So when I look at, there's a lower budget increase projected for FY 28, but there's a bigger increase to the levy, and that's because there's no cash reserves put into that picture. Is that right?
yep,
If we put
Yeah.
cash reserves in, the increase to the tax levy will not be 739. It'll be something lower. And
right.
that's
Susie,
what
I
we
can
did
actually show
last
you that.
year. Yeah.
I can show everybody that because I actually worked on that. I actually took a look at that, and I can show you something I was going to say for all of you, for everybody. The total budget increase from FY 27 by each of those departments is 545, but I don't know where I put it. There it is. It's 545, but if you look at the revenue increase, it's 739, and the difference is roughly the 205.
Yeah.
Lost cash flow. So that is, so I did that reconciliation. So you were 100% correct.
So when we talk about this being a tool, and I'm trying to understand why when the total budget increase is less in the second in 28, but higher in the impact on taxes, it's because we get to choose line 449. We get to think about that. And that is actually how we have been working to bring the tax increases lower, because we did not want to impact it. We didn't want the dollar value to impact so much. So that's
Yeah.
one of the places to reorganize.
Yeah, and it certainly, and again, like I said earlier, this tool certainly shows that this is probably something we should be thinking about for FY 28 if this all turns out to be where we're headed.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we don't have specifically is the capital impact, right?
Well, I created a spreadsheet to do that, but it may not be the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I
But
can
I
demonstrate
think
that real quick.
what would be helpful, George, though, I think is to have you confirm that what you have done in this tool is you've actually, instead of just applying an inflation factor to our debt service category, you actually plugged in our obligations that we got from Ryan. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
highlighted that particular one in yellow, because I wanted to talk about that when we're ready. I think
Yeah.
there's still some questions about the summary I did. I think we should talk about first, but then I'll come back to this
Okay, got it.
because I see Laura.
Susie, Susie, did you have anything else before I go to Laura?
Well, the other thing is that I am a person that really can't read online. I need to have bigger picture than moving and scrolling. So I wondered if this is printable.
Yeah, if I made, I would make a PDF version of it.
Okay.
And you want me to email at some point a PDF version of this?
So here's what I would suggest, George, is that all of this stuff, the summary stuff at the bottom, so the key balances and the year-to-year changes, I like the idea of all of that ending up as like a dashboard that's a separate sheet that can then be printed fairly, cleanly as its own like
So just
PDF
highlight this and
document.
put a heading on it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I can do. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just
Yeah.
insert some rows here and I'll make it I'll put a heading on it. Yeah, and I'll give it a label, sure. And I'll make
Yeah.
this whole thing printable.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think that'd be great.
You got it. Maybe this way too with notes. Yep, you got it. I'm just going to highlight
Laura.
it just to remind myself.
I mean, one suggestion for the key balances might be to add reserves balance also, just kind of so we can keep track of how much of that we're putting where.
Yeah, and that means so Laura, you just gave us extra work, because what that means is we're going to have to really do the same kind of thing, of course, which Susie suggested, and I know others have in other meetings.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
it. But that is a whole nother, the cash reserves, this is really operating budget and revenue.
Yeah.
We use cash reserves to plug sometimes and create revenue, but it's not really driving cash reserves. And so but I do have a spreadsheet on that, and maybe next meeting, AJ, or if we have time,
Yeah.
I could
I
give
think that's
everybody
a
a
good
little
idea.
warm up on it.
Yeah. I think we should do that at our next meeting. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have that ready, and I sent it to you, AJ. So you might want,
Yep.
if you have any questions or anything about it, let me know.
So
Yeah.
that was a looking year to year on our cash balances. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, what it is, I'll make
Yeah,
it
you
real
don't have to
quick.
go into, I just wanted to make sure I understood the noun in that
Yeah,
sense.
so what it is I take the beginning cash balances or the ending cash balances of FY26 or 25, and we have the spreadsheet where we do our CapEx stuff on it.
Yeah.
And so it's that for the first year. And then I do the same thing going out in future years. I take the ending balances after we do those things, put them at the beginning balances. I'll tie it to the capital plans, long-term thing eventually, and then we'll drop those capital purchases in there and we'll see the reserves going down. And then we have to make assumptions about how much reserves do we generate at the end of each budget year,
Yeah.
things like that. But that itself would be a project just like this.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
But it's a capital budget, it's a pretty standard thing, so it wasn't really that hard for me to make it. Okay, so AJ was asking about debt service. So, the things that need to be done in the future, at this point, we could evaluate, and you all have this spreadsheet, you could open this up and evaluate these percentages and decide, are they reasonable or not? They seem pretty reasonable to me for this purpose. That's one thing we definitely need to change. Another thing we need to change, evaluate, is some of the revenue assumptions. Like we talked about, using an average for the state aid. I guess that's pretty good. If we hear something new, we can change that. And then I was talking about these valuations. What's really the right numbers to use? I think 6.8 is too high because we had a blip and we know property values are high right now. I just can't imagine they can continue to increase at that rate. But
Yeah.
so I think this is something we need to talk about as well. And then there's back to the budget and the debt service piece. I'm going to expand, and to answer AJ's question and everybody else's, I'm sure, this is what was provided to us by Ryan. And I tied this back to the schedule he sent us. And then I made an assumption about the fire truck, which may not be true. I'm going to just freeze this line here because I don't want to lose the heading. I know it confuses people. It can be confusing, let me put it that way. So in I'm not sure that the first debt service payment for the fire truck is in 2028. And I'm using an assumption of 10 years. So basically I took the price and divided it by 10. And then I calculated interest at 4%. So maybe we can look more closely at this or ask Ryan what he thinks is more likely to happen with the fire truck. And then we have to think about things for the future. What kind of debt service might we have in the future? We know that we won a grant for the grader. I don't know if everybody heard that, but we did get $250,000 for the grader. Woohoo. And I sent an email to David Grenier and asked him how he was going to fund the variance between that 250 and the 300 something it's going to cost. He never got back to me, so I'll have to follow up with him. Because that might have to be funded by debt. Hopefully he can fund it with his Chapter 90. So those are things we have to think about. What are our long-term capital needs, and will we be borrowing for anything else in the future? Right now, assuming that if the fire truck is received in FY28, assuming we have debt service in FY27, if the fire truck shows up, our first debt service will be in FY28. I don't know if there'd be 2 or 1. I think we pay semi-annually, so it might only be 40. It may not happen until next year. So this is something we probably want to answer, especially in light of this increase here, because the big portion of this increase is this number and that number, and it goes down to 15% when I take those out. And also for everybody's benefit, it looks like we have a half year of loan interest in FY27, and it goes to a full year's complement. And so that is also another thing that contributes to this increase.
There was some kind of talk in the flow of last year about maybe paying off some of these loans out of cash reserves to get them out of the picture. And I don't know, like I don't know how many years the PFAS loan is out there for. It doesn't seem like it. We've already been paying on it, right? It's not, that's not the first payment, I don't think.
No.
So I
No.
don't know if that is a strategy that we would be thinking.
Well, it was one that I had raised, and I think it's a conversation with Ryan. If you look at the dump truck and the backhoe, we funded them for the principal portion of those for the current year, right? 86,000. So 86 next year and 86 the year after. That amounts to the numbers down here, 172.5. If we took 172.5 of cash and we paid off those loans at the beginning of fiscal 28, then we would be freeing up $86,000 in debt service in our operating budget for the 2 years. And that might allow us to pick up this 80. So that's one way of looking at it. It would also save us the interest on those two things, which amounts to $13,000.
And is there a restriction against paying off some loans early?
These days, most loans don't have provisions like that. Maybe bonds do, but I don't think
Oh,
loans
okay.
do.
That's the difference. Loans and bonds. Sorry.
Well, I don't know how these are financed. So
That's a question for Ryan, I think,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I don't know if we have enough cash reserves or not. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of positive things about cash reserves in the form of rural aid that came to us that we won't even need for FY26
It
because
goes to
roads
the
spent.
school.
It goes to school. Rural aid is a bad example. Funding for the snow and ice that's going to come to us. We certainly look like we're going to get some money from unspent lines. So the sooner we know about free cash, the better position we are to make a decision like this. We do know that our stabilization funds are getting pretty darn low.
Yeah, we do.
And I also would say if we use free cash, just something to think about, if we use free cash and we got rid of these, and it turns out this loan doesn't start until FY29, we could put in the operating budget an amount to fund capital stabilization because we just created the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
So another thing to think about, and that's why I think, brainstorming with Ryan, I think is not a bad idea.
All right, so George, can we just quickly recap like what I think this is very close to being a usable tool that individual FinCom members can have access to, can model different scenarios. I mean, I think that's in my mind that's one of the most valuable ways for us to use this is to model different scenarios like an optimistic model, a stress test model, like what would happen if we have another health insurance spike or another regional school assessment spike along the lines of what we saw not this year but last year, and and then that would enable us to sort of look at kind of a range of possible outcomes and help us think about, well, okay, if these assumptions bear out, like this is potentially how we might need to respond. So I think that's I think we're getting close to that. But I do think that one of the reasons why some of these outlier years look relatively positive in this tool
is because of some of those assumptions in the top part of the document. And so it seems like one of the things that we need to do is all of us independently review these assumptions right here. And maybe we can have a discussion at our next meeting about like getting some consensus around what we think of as the best, like the appropriate kind of baseline assumptions to make about these. I still feel like the maybe the education assumptions are
Low.
too low, but like, you know, that I want us to have like a discussion about this and kind of a little bit of a negotiation.
Yeah, the education is actually not low when you're talking base operating, but when you take the fluctuations of out
Yeah.
district placements,
Yeah,
it's such a hard thing to predict.
right.
Because without the special ed, SES's increase was very low.
Was pretty
but-
more like 2%, right? Or
Yeah,
something
I
it's
think it
like
was
2.39 or something.
Yeah.
It was less than
Um,
2.5.
Right. But is that, yeah, I guess the question then is, and then this is part of what we're trying to deal with this idea of a stabilization account. But anyway, I guess the point being that I think all FinCom members need to, like, now that you've got like an overview of this, I think you need to review this tool and bring to our next meeting any thoughts you have about some of the assumptions that are built into this that you want to either advocate for a different approach or a different assumption, or ask clarifying questions about why we're assuming that and not this. You know, but to bring those kinds of questions to our next meeting. Does that make sense? Yeah.
One factor I was looking for is the trash.
Mhm.
And in fact, the trash has had a contract that increased at about 4% every year. And
Mhm.
now we're headed to a new contract. And I'm just going to complain about this one more time. The
Mhm.
last time we had a trash contract that came in, it was an increase of 60,000, and we just ate it in the budget. And as we've gone along, that may be a bigger number, and just packing it into the operating costs may not work. So yeah, I know that there was a notes section on this, and George mentioned the trash contract.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, wherever it is under here in Public Works.
and we don't have OPEB on here, even though
Mhm.
we're intending to start putting it in the operating expense.
I forget what assumption I made with OPEB here. Let me
Oh, OPEB is a revenue source, you mean? Or?
No, I'm sorry, I said the wrong word again. PFAS, all those
PFAS.
acronyms.
Yes.
Yeah, PFAS, right. It's not in here, right? Okay. Yeah, that's a big one. And again, like this
we're
could be
looking
it
at
right here,
100.
our contingency.
Right.
Might
It
have used
did
it
beat
all
out
up in
our
one shot.
contingency.
Yeah.
Right.
So much for that.
Right.
Turns out we do need it. Yeah, AJ, I agree with you. I think this is the first thing people should think about. I did go to the state website and I
Yeah.
looked at their long range forecast models. They have templates and all kinds of stuff, but it's a lot more, it's really sophisticated stuff. I think larger towns with finance departments, and they can dedicate a lot more time to this, can use those templates. I mean, they made sense. They look good, but it was a lot of stuff. But they didn't have current thinking on inflation rates for these various categories.
Do-
So I was
do-
hoping to
do-
get.
Do any of us, and maybe Haley, have a contact at the DLS that, you know, somebody that we know that we might be able to share these assumptions with and get their feedback on whether they think this is consistent with how they recommend towns model these increases?
Yeah, I could send an email.
Okay. I
And the
know there
other
was
thing
that person that was doing those interviews, right, with different,
Mhm.
maybe that.
I'll
maybe
start
that
there.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing we talked about is sending this off to Becky to look at, and Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan's view wouldn't really cover some of this, although he was in the select board in Orange long enough to know maybe. And he also has a bazillion jobs, but
Mhm. Yeah.
somebody else looking at it like that might be helpful.
Yeah. That's great. This is exciting though. I mean, I really feel like this is going to be
I think-
very useful. to
I think
us.
it gives us a good sense of where we're headed right now. I mean, I think it does need to be tweaked. I think the other tweak,
Yeah.
AJ, the second thing I would ask is how do we figure out what type of debt service we might have in these future years? We
Yeah.
can see things dropping out. I can't imagine that something isn't going to drop in.
Yeah. So I guess that my thought was that isn't that part of what capital planning is working on right now? So
Yeah, maybe
that-
a while. It's
All
going
right.
slow as molasses.
Okay, got it. Because
I
I
mean,
think
we can't even get ourselves a date that we can
Okay.
all meet for the next 2 weeks. So,
Ugh.
and we got to work with department heads, which is also not necessarily the most effective.
I mean, Haley, do you feel like you might be able to put together a preliminary list of some of the things your capital items that you're hearing about in some of these future years,
Yeah.
like FY30 and beyond? Yeah.
I think so. If George, if you send me what you have, I'll look at it because there's a couple things that like I know aren't on there, like the salt shed at the highway department.
Right.
And that
Well,
would be something.
It's funny you say that. When you look at the warrant articles that we approved at annual town meeting this year, half of those things weren't on there. Digitization, you know, and some things never will be. Those are one-shot deals. Haley, I really don't have anything done in terms of what we're
Mhm.
updating, but what I sent today for the what do you call that? The records request.
Mhm.
I think I CC'd you on that, right?
Oh, I didn't get that.
Oh, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I better check that because I replied to Calvin and I replied all. Did Calvin
Oh.
say? Well, I'll check and make sure.
Oh. Okay, and I can just check with him tomorrow then.
Well, I'll send it to you again. I'm putting it
Okay.
right here now. I'll send it to you again, Haley. And that'll have it. That'll have the
Okay.
old stuff. The dollar amounts might not be right, but it'll give you a sense
Mm-hmm.
of some of the larger items that are coming along. And you know, in case you weren't aware, Ryan will tell us we can't borrow for a police car because
Mm-hmm.
items at 60, 70,000, really anything under 100,000, that's hard to find somebody to lend you that money for municipal governments. So think in terms of bigger items. That's all. And then the other thing I think, you know, that we might want to talk about or think about is, yeah, are these averages for growth right? And I guess we really can't do anything with the state aid until we have a better idea, in the local aid and the pilot until we have a better idea, right?
Right.
So AJ, I don't know what you think about those things. So those are the other ones I'd say. And I
Yeah.
think once we did that, once we get these pieces, I think we have a long range plan that gives us a good idea of where we're headed.
Yep.
In terms of
Could the
spreadsheet,
assessor give us their view on the assumptions that around
property value,
Sure, why not?
property value?
I'll ask.
Jay.
I'll send it along to the assessors department. I will ask them.
Okay.
We're not meeting again until September, but I can certainly do that.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
In
So
terms of running a spreadsheet, you just click on these boxes that are in the far left and it opens up more of the information.
Yeah, I've got this set up with what they're called. They're called groups. And so when I'm presenting something like this to a group of people, I have detail. And really we're looking at the summary level, but if a question comes up, you want to see the detail for any of you and all of you, you can just hit these pluses for any particular line.
The pluses,
Or
okay.
these will open up all of them for the whole thing. And if you're doing that and you're scrolling through it and you want to look at it this way, you certainly can. And then when you want to just look at it at the high level, just hit the 1 and it collapses the whole thing.
Nice.
Nice.
And that also for here, if you look, I've got prior year information in here. You can't see it. Why can't we see it? But there it is. So you can see I got
Yeah,
prior
you see it.
year. We don't really want to look at that data,
Yeah.
but it's there if questions came up. And I can use it for trend analysis.
Mhm.
that's great.
So that's also there.
All right. So everybody should plan on spending some time with this. Bring any questions, any suggestions to our next meeting. think we're probably, yeah, like, a meeting away from having a working tool. So this is
And I'll
awesome.
send this to everybody. Like last
Yeah.
time, you can all feel free to do whatever you want with it. Your copy.
All right,
Oh, good.
sounds good. All right, we've got 10 minutes left. I wanted to leave a few minutes for any updates that you all have. I have one a question, which is I got an email from Brennan about the annual report, the Shutesbury annual report. Does anybody remember what we usually do? Do we just like attach our annual report and
Yes,
that's
and it's
sufficient?
got the summary letter this
Yeah.
time, so that and that, and then they
Okay.
put the budget in. Sometimes I've seen past without the budget, so he needs to know that he has the budget too.
I
Okay.
thought I
All
sent
right.
it to him, but I can check. He usually,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
thought
I'll
so.
give
He
you.
he may have it, and it just what I saw was a general reminder that went to everybody about
Yeah, I think
the
he did
August
send it.
31st deadline. So he might have a plan, but
The only thing I would say to qualify what Susie said is sometimes I change the heading. I think I changed the very top to say as presented at annual town meeting, June or May 10th or whatever date it was.
okay.
Um,
Would you mind sending him a version of the annual report with that header on it?
I don't mind. No, not at all.
Okay,
The only
great.
thing I will say is if we have a special town meeting and we adjust the budget, it
Mhm.
won't be the final.
We're
Yeah,
not gonna
right.
do that this time.
Well, so we think.
It takes a whole
Mhm.
lot of work.
Yeah,
We're only a month into the year, so far so good.
right.
So you want me to
Are-
send it to him now?
Yeah, sure. He said the deadline was August 31st. So just
Oh, I see.
sometime.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Consider it
sometime
done.
in the
I'll
next.
CC
Yeah,
I'll
it's
CC
not
you,
gonna-
AJ.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay. Does anybody else have any updates or questions they needed to they want to run by the committee before we wrap up tonight? We're doing pretty good on our 2-hour cap here. So
And you're gonna
Hopefully-
tell us
hopefully there's a
about, you're gonna tell us about the heat pumps grant.
oh yes, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. All right. So I had sent Michael an email asking if there was any news on our technical assistance grant. And here is his response. Okay. Most of which I think did make sense to me. A little bit I was confused about, but can you guys see this okay? All right,
Blow it
so
up a
no word yet on. Let's see if I can.
Yeah.
All right. No word yet on the technical assistance grant. About a month ago, Haley and I had a meeting with DOER about it. They wanted the town to complete a comprehensive building assessment, which is a deeper analysis by an engineering firm paid for by National Grid. We agreed to that, but made the strenuous point that a CBA was not a requirement for eligibility for the technical assistance grant. We suggest that they make a condition of approval of the grant. We got the CBA approved on an expedited basis. The site visit was last week at SES, and we will have the final report by mid-August. So despite this extra hoop, I continue to assume we will hear from DOER in early fall. It is worth noting that I thought was interesting, noting that the CBA was really helpful, the best of the 3 site visits we've had with experts. I think there is a growing consensus among the ad hoc team from ECAC, Buildings, and ESCOM that the best technical approach to meet the school's needs will be air source heat pumps rather than ground source. These will be much cheaper to install, which means that when we apply for the $1 million implementation grant, we will have money to spare to do canopies, I guess I assume solar canopies, at the school to cover the cost of electrical usage by the heat pumps.
Nice.
And the various other upgrades to the other municipal buildings. Another benefit of the air source heat pumps is that we can install them more quickly since we are fighting the clock in regards to the oil tank. We are very aware that we want to minimize costs. We throw down the drain maintaining that failing system. The CBA consultant is aware of our urgency, which should help in how she writes it up. Timeline as follows. We're trying to get our procurement process set up now so that when we get word from DOER, we will be ready to go out to bid. when we get approved. He still remains optimistic. If we can get a vendor to do the assessment work and design documents as the deliverables from the TA grant, we will then be positioned to apply for the implementation grant. Municipalities can apply in February and August of each year. It will be a stretch to be ready by February, but it's worth being hopeful. If not, we should apply in August 2027. All right, so that's the update. So it does sound like a pretty substantive one. Still optimistic about the TA grant. It does occur to me as I'm reading this that Caitlin said that this God, what is it? What is the school construction grant?
MSBA.
Yeah, MSBA also has, I think, their funding process that could heat pump system could be an eligible expense for that. So
Sometimes
that sounds
those
like the
take a long
direction.
time to get.
Yeah, right.
They have a limited pool.
Right.
Yeah, well, MSBA definitely was addressing this particular one as opposed to delaying the roof. So it's supposed to be on a different track. But could you send me this email so I can go over it? Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to send it to everybody. Okay. All right. Any questions about this or any other kinds of updates?
I was at the Catherine's meeting with the assessment, and it was like Michael said, it was the most positive thing. Ground source is still going to have to use some petroleum-based backup. Her system that we shoot goes into the air will not, so we could meet the state demands. So you have to have some type of backup.
I see.
What would the backup be for Air Force?
No, not air. Air source doesn't have a backup. It'll be the solar and all that. It's just if we do ground source heat pumps, you have to have a backup with very low temperatures. We'd also have to increase. You put heat in, you take heat out. So we'd have to increase air conditioning in the summer.
That's a real benefit to air. But I always thought it was the other way around. I thought, because I have mine's air sourced,
right?
And I get to a certain temperature and I have to start burning propane. When the temperature gets down to the teens, I got to start using propane to keep my house comfortable.
Yeah.
And I thought that benefit of the ground source was the temperature 100 feet, 800 feet, whatever it is down, never changes.
Right.
It never changes. But what happens is the area you take it out of goes down. So in other words, if you're taking a lot of energy out of there, what we were told is you deplete that area heat source. So that's why you air condition it and put the heat back in the summer.
Right.
You put the heat back down and you do zero. So that's where the balance is. So it'd be nice to see when we finally get all the bells and whistles and you see all the proposals. But this was very positive because we got answers that wasn't National Grid's view, because they wanted us to stay in a certain project going forward.
But we will have to do the parking lot.
Yeah.
That was going to be what the ground source took care of, was the parking lot.
Yeah.
Paving.
That's a good point.
There's all sorts of trades going on here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that's where they could also put the solar panels there. That was another, if we get it in the grant, we could do all that and put the parking lot solar panels in.
But ground source is a lot more expensive because of the drilling. And there's a shortage of drillers because a lot of institutions are putting ground source in. And there's also been a lot of complaints. I think you've all been aware, Mount Holyoke and UMass, the noise involved in sinking those drilling those holes is really loud, and a lot of people are complaining.
Right.
All right. Any other updates? I do have a hard stop tonight. Sorry, guys, at 8:30. Any other updates?
I would just say that, it's been 3 months and the new assessor is working out great.
Great.
He's got big plans. He's very energetic and enthusiastic. He's catching us up on things that we haven't been able to do because we haven't had a regular assessor. And so that's going really well.
Right.
And then capital planning is working on their long range capital plan. It's not inaccurate in terms of the things that are laid out on it, although as Haley pointed out earlier, there are things missing. But the dollar values need to be updated. There's been tremendous inflation since it's really been completed. So we're working on that. It's just a slow grind because we have to coordinate with managers and the summertime is quiet. But we want to get that done before we get to the next cycle, the next capital budget cycle. So that's what's going on with capital planning.
So AJ, if you have to
Yep.
leave, I see that Mary Lou has a question.
Yeah.
You could leave and we could answer her question and then adjourn.
Okay. Well, Mary Lou, I'm going to call on you now. Maybe if it's a quick thing, I might be able to hang on for a minute, but I might have to leave.
Thank you. Can you
Did you have a question or comment? I can
Yes.
hear you. It is a little bit low, but if you could speak up a little bit.
Okay, I'll talk loud. I have a
Yeah.
quick question. I was looking at that budget paper stuff that you were showing on your computer. Is that
Yeah.
accessible to the public? And if yes, where? Or is it just a draft that you all are deciding on?
Well, what it is it's a planning tool, and it's very much a draft right now. It's a
Okay.
this is a new tool that the finance committee has
Okay.
committed to developing. The purpose of it will be to model different scenarios so that we can see potential sort of budget implications of different, kinds of decisions and different factors over a 5-year period.
Okay,
So
in other words, as a public person, I can't look at it right now?
well, it's not ready to be distributed now because it's a draft. So
Okay.
when when it's complete, we haven't discussed it, but I would imagine that it'll be a document that we'll share just like we do with our other budget documents on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay. Anything else folks needed to discuss? All right. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the finance committee. Oh, everybody saw I posted, I think, at least the next several meetings. So the only thing that's going to be a little strange, right, is because there's a meeting on August 31st, I think it was, or something like that.
Yes.
So that'll, so September won't exactly be the first and third Monday of the month, but because we're going to actually have 3 meetings in August. But anyway, you guys get the idea. So hopefully this schedule is working out for folks.
I think that makes sense because I think is Labor Day
Yeah,
the following
exactly.
Monday. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we wouldn't be
yeah,
able to do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Very good. Okay, so I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second,
Right.
Renaissance side.
Cashew eye.
McGinn, aye.
Aye.
So do I.
We
Did
got
you skip
a moth
Molly?
on it.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. That was productive.
See
Okay.
you all later.
Take care.